In the last 10 to 15 years where I have been doing portraits, one person I keep coming back to is Mishima Kermani, who is incredible. I mean, an inspiration to not just me but many others around the world. And I remember when I photographed her in 2011 for my book. I mean, I was really struck with how many stories she told with every pose and with grace. And then I again photographed her last year twice, and to see that evolution between photographer and myself and Shimaji, I was really fascinated. How much does sort of both evolved to work in relationship with grit. So Shimaji, thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Thank you, Mobeen. It is very kind of you and for your generous words.
Pleasure is mine. I learned from you. Simaji, how have you been doing during this, pandemic? Have you had to make changes to your studio or adapt to the situation in some way?
Yes, well, actually, just before it started here in Pakistan, before the lockdown started, and we were working, we were really in the depth of rehearsals. We had planned a festival to celebrate 40 years of Tehreek-e-Niswan.
Right.
And so this was a huge festival, which meant at least 10 to 12 productions. So like actually we've been working on this from since October last year, 2019,
Yeah.
because there were 10. So it's the same group that is doing all these various productions. And it was a retrospect of our work of 40 years with some new work as well. And so we were right in the depth and in the midst of all of this when in March, we had our last performances just before the lockdown started. I mean, I think the last performance we had was on the on the 15th of March. And after that, our next performance was going to be on the 18th of March. So we were, everyone there was a huge momentum that had built, and every day from morning till evening, we had been working with different cast members doing different rehearsals. And then all of a sudden, it all had came to a standstill.
Mm.
So initially, I think there was a lot of depression as to, how are we going to cope with this? And I think everyone kind of felt very sad that, all it has to stop, because obviously, and then one didn't know whether the festival will be able to take place. But of course,
Right.
now one knows that in July we cannot have the festival. We don't even know if any time by the end of this year we'll be able to have it. Maybe we have to postpone it to 2021. Hopefully that things get better. But so the first month was kind of very in a state of confusion, really. What to do, how do we manage? And so I think that month I spent watching a lot of films that I had been wanting to watch for a long time, and which which didn't have time to watch. Read a lot of books which I had piled up that I want to sort of get on my reading. So the first month was like very confused, and then after that one started realizing that one has to live with this.
Right.
And one started planning how to go about it, what to do, and how
Right.
to use basically, I mean, I think how we can, because actually, as you know, I'm involved with the live arts, dance and theater. They are
Yeah.
live. They don't really work like online kind of thing. People have been trying to put things online, but our work is basically a live performance, and it survives on constant live interaction with our
Uh,
audience.
uh,
And that somehow, obviously, we cannot manage. till the lockdown, until things improve, till people can come together again. And also, I mean, having rehearsals does not work, because you can't have people in a room together, whether it's dance rehearsal or theater rehearsal. So what I did then for the second and the third month, because now it's been 3 months, as you know, the second
Right.
and third month, what I did is, you've been to my studio, you've seen the number of books. We have about 5,000 books.
Right.
So we started cataloging our books, and we've
Mm.
been cataloging them and indexing them, so that we can so we have an order with it, because they were kind of all mixed. So
Right.
that is the work that I started doing, and kept myself busy in.
Uh,
Besides this, maybe what I would like to share is that, in the last 2 months also, I have, because a lot of artists are out of work, as you
yes,
know, and so there's no
absolutely.
income. So there's such a loss, financially, for everyone. There's no. So then we try to connect with people who can give donations, and so in these months, I connected with at least 500 families who are sort of musicians, artists, as well as some minority women, divorced women, women who have used to, had been working in people's homes, but had been told to not come, so they were not getting a salary. So
Yeah.
with these donations, we collected, we bought ration
Wow.
bags, and we've done that kind of work as well, through
Wow.
various other people who have been our donors.
Yeah. This is really inspiring for artists like me, and for a lot of people. I mean, all of us were trying to adapt one way or another, but listening about what you're doing, what you've done is really really inspiring for us all. Thank you for continuing to inspire us in this day and age, as you have in every decade. It has been so incredible photographing you for the last 9 years, almost a decade. And out of the many people that I have worked with on more than one occasion, I've kept coming back to you the most. And what has always fascinated me is, that in my shoot with you as a photographer, in each frame and pose, you have told a different story. In those poses, in the photo shoot with me, were you switching between incorporating, theater, drama, and forgive my pronunciation, but Bharatanatyam?
Yes, yes, that's right, Bharatanatyam and Odissi. So the classical dance genres that I practice are Bharatanatyam, Odissi, and Kathak. As you go mature in your art, you learn that it is more important to be able
Yeah,
to express the emotions. And
yeah,
so I think that is why you find it, sort of easier to connect with me. That every moods are portrayed through,
right.
in dance, and so it can be just the way you tilt your head, or an eyebrow that is raised, or something very small that says something.
No wonder I've enjoyed photographing you so much. Um, this is something that fascinates me the most about you, as well as a lot of people who follow your work. You are someone who has lived through the turn of the 20th century, and have not only seen history up close, but you've been a part of it up close.
Mm.
From having begun your movement, your NGO, Tehreek Niswan, in late 1970s, to holding dances in public during a conservative time, during Ziaul Haq's time in the 1980s, and then, spreading awareness to some rural areas, through your dances, to raise awareness about some issues. And then, now coming to the late 2000s, expressing solidarity with Shah to the Damal performance that you did, and then ultimately leading the Aurat March in Karachi. So, it's at the same time, when you held all the dances in public to defy the ban on arts and culture, and just trying to work your way around it. This painter Iqbal Hussain from Lahore, he would also, because his subject matter was very controversial, for the time. So he would also display his paintings, on Mall Road. Do you think that kind of movement was also a coincidence or a collective of artists of all of you protesting? And as you know, having going back to what I was saying earlier, to what you've done in each decade, how do you feel you have evolved?
No, well, I think you see, I believe that I practice art with a purpose. I don't practice art for art's sake. I practice art with a concern of everything around me. I think the role of an artist in society is
Right,
also an important thing that we must look at.
right,
And I think the role of the artist is to use that their art form to say something, to create a meaning through your work, to bring forth ideas, to create perspectives, to give alternatives, and that is what I've always tried to do. And and I also feel that art is not only for a certain restricted to a certain class or to a certain section of society. I think art when it touches people's lives, when it
mm,
becomes part of people's lives,
right,
then art becomes meaningful. And so that's why I've always pushed for performances that are open so that anyone can come to them, and try to be involved in performances where the masses are there who don't get opportunity to see our art forms, whether it's like you mentioned, Iqbal, whether it is painting. I mean, how many people go
right,
a art gallery, for instance? But if that is exhibited publicly in a public space, so many people can view it and get the exposure and see the beauty. So I think to develop a sense of aesthetics in our public, in the minds, and open up those eyes of the public to the aesthetics of beauty, of aesthetics of love, to the aesthetics of communication with each other. I think that is so important, and I think that is the role of the artist as well. So my purpose in doing all that I've done is exactly that. I would like my art to touch the hearts and the minds of people. And arts are so motivating, arts are so inspiring, arts can give you courage, arts can give you strength, arts open up all the eyes in your that are closed in your head, in your mind, and that opening, that creates an environment of tolerance, that creates an environment of acceptance of different kinds of people. So I mean, whether it is different genders, we are so rigid, we don't accept that women are equal to men, that their rights are equal rights, we don't accept other genders in our society. But these are the issues that concern me, because I want a society, I want to create an environment, a society where everybody is equal, gets equal rights. I mean, it's like today, right now, all over the world, in USA, we see what is happening. There's still that huge, big color discrimination,
right,
racism, discrimination, and that exists, and it's so deeply ingrained. The black and white, it's ingrained in our lives, in our concepts. Whenever a family goes to look for a bride, they say, "हमको तो गोरी लड़की चाहिए."
right,
You know, खूबसूरत हो, गोरी हो. खूबसूरती, beauty is related to fairness. And then what
right,
happens? Then you see all these celebrities, they are promoting these whitening products for the skin, which are so harmful to the skin, which can be which can create cancer for people. And people just don't think about these things. Similarly, the discrimination between the sexes is so strong. And, in these days of the pandemic, you ask, I mean, in my office, I get every day so many calls from girls or domestic violence issues. People are at home, families are at home, husbands are at home. There's little time distance between each other, and there's a lot of violence that is going
Right.
on. These are the things that can change if we promote the arts, if we, use these arts to create messages of rights, messages of love, messages of beauty.
It's so amazing to get, such rich, information and, details about what you've done. So, a lot of people are curious about, is there a dancer that you look up to for inspiration and looked up to in the past?
Yes, well, I mean, for a start, I would say my first initial guru in Pakistan, in Karachi, was Mr. Ghansham. And
Yeah.
so my first inspiration as a dancer, as a performer, was him. And through him, I learned so many things. I was about 13, 14 when I started learning with him. And all the things, and I stayed with him till for a good 20 years, till he had to leave the country, leave Pakistan because of when Ziaul Haq came and all the ban on dancing and things like that. And I must say that my initial inspiration about art and about what is the purpose of art, and how an artist, the kind of role the artist plays in society, and what how a guru inspires students. I learned from him basically.
This is really, really amazing to how many layers there are, in the whole learning process.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
so do you have that, okay, so what's your most memorable favorite performance and tour, whether in Pakistan or abroad?
Oh, that is a very bit of a difficult question to answer, but memorable performances have been many, and I would maybe like to mention that one memorable performance was in 1995, I think, when I was performing in China, in Beijing, and this was an international women's conference that was taking place in China, where there were millions of women. I mean, I don't remember how many lakhs of women there were. And I was given an opportunity to perform in front of, I think there were at least 1 lakh women there, which was an open performance on a very high stage so that everyone could see. And all women, and my mother happened to be there at that, also at that conference. So it was a
Uh,
very emotional experience, an emotional conference for me, where I dedicated my dance to the fact that it was my mother actually who introduced me to dancing, because she
uh,
herself was very fond of dancing. And whenever she would go back home to her parents, her ustad would come to teach her. And that was my first exposure to classical dance. This was in Hyderabad, Deccan, in India, where her parents lived. And that was a very moving performance for me. And another performance that I remember was very moving was a performance that we held outside Bhicha, and this was organized by a politician, a person called Rasul Baksh Palijo, who was having his Hari conference, a peasant conference. And there were about 2-3 lakh of peasants of Sindh. Those people who probably had never seen classical dance in their life. And
uh,
Palijo said to me, "Okay, no, you have to dance, you have to perform." And I was really scared. I said, "I'm doing an Amir Khusro piece. Will they understand? I mean, what will be the reaction? This is classical dance." And then it was an amazing experience. I mean, the kind of vibrations we got from the audience during the performance and at the end of the performance, that was a very, very moving event performance for me.
before I let you go, I have one more question for you. The other day, I posted a portrait of yours, which I took, last February, I believe, when we reunited for the first time after 9 years. And when I posted it, so a fan of yours said that this is the personification of an era, And to myself, I was thinking this is not a personification of an era, but different eras. Um, did you feel, like I was asking you before, um, uh, where do we sort of go from here? And like, what's the future like for performing arts, for dances here in Pakistan?
Well, Mubin, it's very difficult to say what is the future at this point in time in history when we're living in the pandemic of Corona. How many of us survive it? How many of us pull through this whole thing? And what happens to these arts? Right now, I'm actually quite confused what will happen to the live arts because I've always felt that live arts are so important for society. You know, um, technology is one thing, showing your art through a camera, through a computer, through a screen is another thing. But the electricity, the dynamics, the vibrancy of a live performance, how do you catch that? I mean, we've tried. I've done a performance on camera and said, let's see what it looks. But it's never the same as the live eye watching the live movement in front of you. So I would say I'm actually very confused at this point in time as to how we, the artists who perform live, how are we going to survive? How is our art going to survive? Will it move forward? Will it be possible for people to come and sit together to watch a performance ever again or not? One can just hope for the best that yes, we will get over these difficult times and things will improve. But the other point about these classical arts, you see, um, in a country like Pakistan, where there's absolutely no state or government support. In fact, where there is normally, I mean, over the years, one has seen the governments, the states have been anti these art forms, have in fact put so many obstructions in our way. Like, I mean, when Ziaullah came, yeah, I mean, we had to get NOCs, the no objection certificates. We had to get our script censored. We had to say we are not wearing ghungroos on stage. We are doing a culturally, all sorts of things to be able to get away to do a public performance. Um, and I feel that it is difficult to do these kind of performances unless you have support. And in other countries, there's philanthropic support. There are big business houses who create auditoriums, who pay repertory companies to continue performing, because they feel that arts is important. Now, the message that I want to bring is that arts is are important. Live arts are important for a society, and the society cannot be dynamic enough, be alive enough, unless live arts are brought to the people. And for these live arts, people must give support. There must be donations, there must be philanthropy, there must be auditoriums, whether they're open air stages, closed stages. People have to build these in public spaces. You remember the times when one could have music concerts in the public, one could have dance performances publicly. We have to bring back that. We have to bring live arts to a live nation, to keep that nation, to keep that society alive.
I mean, these are words to live by, and I think both of us in Pakistan, not only in Pakistan but around the world, can learn from this. I mean, truly, Simaji, thank you so much for imparting such incredible pearls of wisdom for us, and really taking out the time, to talk to me about your life and career.
Was
And
lovely. And
next.
I really appreciate that you gave me the opportunity to say all
Thank
this.
you.
I mean, to
Thank
put
you.
my words in front of you and in front of so many
Thank
others.
you
Thank
so
you.
much. Chimaji, thank you so much for being with us here today and imparting such pearls of wisdom for us all. I learned a lot from you, from talking to you back in 2011, and almost 10 years later, I'm continuing to, and all of us will. And please keep inspiring us. And thank you so much for being there, for being you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mubin. Thank you so much for talking to me. And yes, I look forward to your next visit to Karachi.